We have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment. New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today. As you know, we sued Illinois, and New York didn't listen. So now you're next.
That was beautiful, I have to say. I was very excited yesterday to hear Pam Bondi come out swinging at New York Democrats who have allowed illegal aliens to use their DMVs to obtain driver's licenses. Now, these documents are unvetted because they don't have a system in place to vet these documents. And I've been screaming about this for like 5-6 years now, because we knew exactly what was going to happen. We've been calling it for years. And it's happened. And sadly, there are victims in all of this. Joining me now to discuss is Mehek Cooke. She's a great attorney, and she's also a great friend to this program, and she's here to discuss. Mehek, I'm so thrilled to have you on today because we saw Attorney General Pam Bondi get up there, and she went swinging for New York Democrats who have completely used the system, the DMV system, to not only allow illegal aliens to obtain driver's license, but also help protect them from ICE. Your reaction to the lawsuit that was just filed yesterday?
Well, Breanna, thank you so much for having me on. And let's be honest, these aren't just New York Democrats. These are New York elected officials that have sworn an oath of office to protect the citizens of the United States of America. And they have ensured every single step to buck the legal system, to buck the supremacy clause, which means that the Constitution will trump every single state law when it is not following federalism. And in this case, you've seen Letitia James, you've seen Kathy Hochul, and so many other governors from left-leaning Democrat states continue to tell President Trump that they are not going to follow the Supreme Court of the law, which is you have to be a legal immigrant to live in America. So this doesn't surprise me. And let me be very clear, since day one, President Trump has seen a 93% decrease in our border crossings. That's a victory in and of itself.
Yeah, and it lets us all know that it was possible to protect our border if we actually just implemented our current laws in the books. I know Democrats would go out there and say, "Oh, we're trying to pass immigration reform. We just need Republicans to jump on board." The laws were always on the books, and they never wanted to acknowledge that. And President Trump's proving that it was never new laws that were needed. It was just enforcement of the current laws that we have in place right now. And I wanted to get to a comment that Kathy Hochul put up yesterday because it really is outrageous. Kathy Hochul was actually expected to be at the White House today and have lunch with President Trump, but after the announcement came out from the DOJ, she suddenly had to reschedule her lunch with the president. But she said, "We expect Pam Bondi's worthless, politically driven lawsuit to be a total failure, just like all the others." Let me be clear, New York is not backing down. I mean, it's just disrespectful. New York is known for creating a speculation when it comes to all of this, when it comes to um, trying to misrepresent what these laws are. What happened here, though, is clear. New York is helping illegal aliens avoid ICE, and they're not allowing ICE to have access to their database, and they're trying to block them out. How are they able to get away with this? Because again, this is a state law, and they're continuing. And in this statement alone, she's continuing to credit the state law right now. I believe it's the green light law that they passed 4 or 5 years ago. So she's crediting that as the reason why she's able to get away with this. But this federal law in place right now that says that her state law shouldn't even exist in the first place, it's not even legal.
It isn't. And let me just credit our Attorney General, Pam Bondi. She has come out swinging and she is telling every single state, you better get in line, you better follow the law. And it's very black and white today. This isn't political theater. Look at that angel mother. We lost a life. And there are many other lives that we have continued to lose through this lawfare, through this unequal treatment of our law, the unequal treatment of American citizens. We are being raped, brutalized, and murdered. The last administration allowed rapists and thousands of murderers to come into our country unvetted. So what Pam Bondi is saying is the law of the land is you must be legal. And let me be clear too. We have a state law today that is shocking in New York. It is basically stating that illegal immigrants can get a driver's license. Now you have to sit back and wonder, how are you allowing illegals that shouldn't be in our country drive on our streets? They're not following the law. The first law that they violated was coming in without any legal authority. And then on top of that, it gets better. This state and this attorney general and this governor has allowed these illegal immigrants to not even show their background identification or any information if they are being pulled over by a law enforcement officer. So imagine ICE pulling somebody over. They're not allowed looking at their background. They're not allowed looking to look at their legal status. This is what we're doing to law enforcement today. We're tying one hand behind their backs and saying, please protect us, but we're not going to protect you. We're not going to tell you who's behind that wheel. It's despicable. It's disgraceful. We need to get back to law and order. And that's exactly what Pam Bondi is doing.
Yeah, yeah, and this was all actually, and I should cite the fact that Andrew Cuomo was the governor at the time when they passed all these laws in New York State. He tends to back away from this now because he wants to appear to be moderate, but he was lobbying for this. The insurance companies in New York were lobbying for this. They were saying this was a good thing for New Yorkers for us to give driver's licenses to illegal aliens because they were going to be driving these vehicles anyway. So we'd much rather know who they are, but we don't know who they are because there was a local DMV in upstate New York that actually filed a lawsuit, and sadly they lost, but they were complaining about the fact that they don't know how to vet foreign identifications, and they have no way of seeing that if these documents are real. And sadly the
Correct.
courts didn't side with them, but that's a big national security issue.
100%. I've practiced immigration law, and let me tell you, every single document that comes from a foreign country has to be vetted. There's a proper process, and a lot of times you have to reach out to another state and or country and say, is this document valid? You actually need certifications from other countries. Document validation is not what our local BMVs are doing. It's not what they're paid for. And we certainly should not be giving illegal immigrants who don't belong in our country driver's licenses. They don't have a privilege to be on our road, our highways, our airways. They're illegal. And that's exactly what we should be doing, enforcing the law. So you have Pam Bondi coming out and setting a legal precedent and ensuring that she is protecting every single American citizen. And most of these illegals that are in here, Breanna, they are not only getting documentation, they're living in upscale hotels in New York City on the taxpayer dime. So we need to make sure we're also getting rid of that fraud and abuse. And we have the authority. I actually looked very closely at the Attorney General's lawsuit that was filed. I mean, it's a slam dunk. We're looking at the supremacy clause today. The Constitution is very clear. When you are illegal, you don't have the right to be here. You need to have legal status. And most of these individuals do not. And this is political theater when you have Letitia James and Kathy Hochul sitting back and stating that they're not going to follow the law. They're not going to protect the residents of New York City. It's truly disgraceful.
Yeah, it really is. And just to add to that point too, before we go to the next topic, I wanted to say, I was the one who found out that that illegal alien who set that woman on fire in that New York City subway, he
Oh,
was receiving benefits from New York State. So New Yorkers were paying, their tax money was paying for that horrible, suspected human being. We'll say suspected because he still hasn't been convicted yet, but it's on video. To be living in New York State, and for him to have done that, I mean, he might have not been there in the first place if they weren't paying for it. And so it was heartbreaking to hear just that. So uh, it's infuriating. But I also want to get to this before we wrap. I wanted to ask you about this. We just saw members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, Congressman Mark Harris, lead the way when it comes to making sure that those who are applying for asylum aren't criminals. He just presented the No Asylum for Criminals Act. It's meant to make sure that foreign criminals can't gain asylum here in the United States, which would probably significantly help our courts when it comes to, these people hoping to claim asylum and having to, I mean, our courts, they've got like dates, like 10 years dates in the future because they're just so backed up with these court appearances. What do you think of this piece of legislation, and what will it do for the courts right now?
Look, I think this piece of legislation, it's sad that we have to institute and pass laws that are common sense, right? If somebody
Yeah.
is coming in for an asylum case, it's usually because they are running towards America because they're facing religious persecution, death, many things that are serious issues. We're not supposed to be giving asylum to criminals. So the fact that we have to clearly outline for individuals what asylum is intended for and it shouldn't be extended to criminals, this is just going to make it a lot easier, not only for courts, let's be clear, for activist judges that are sitting across the country and allowing our Constitution to be torn up and laughing in our faces. This is the type of legislation that every single person in Congress should be sitting back and rooting for because we cannot allow activism on our bench. This is what has destroyed America, and we need to make sure this frontal assault on democracy is stopped right away because it's only going to increase the number of deaths, murder, rape, and so many other horrific things against American citizens.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see House Republicans starting to present legislation that really does need to be passed because we've got the power now. Now's the time to start pushing for this while we can. Mehek Cooke, I want to thank you for all that you do in joining me on this show. Your insight's always appreciated, so thank you. One of the best parts about being an independent journalist is I cover the stories everyone else doesn't want to talk about because they say, oh, it's too controversial. No, no, no. There's no such thing as too controversial over here. I love a good controversial story. If you guys follow me right now on my Substack page, you're probably a part of my newsletter, which means before Pam Bondi came out and announced that she was going to be filing civil charges against Letitia James and Kathy Hochul, that I actually called for them to go to prison. Again, folks, I'm ahead of the curve. And that is the reason why you should all be subscribing to my newsletter. Join the team of truth tellers at breannamorello.substack.com. It's for free if you want to join our email list. There's also a paid opportunity too if you want to see other exclusives that we're going to be dropping very, very soon. But if you're looking to just be a part of all of this, head on over right now, breannamorello.substack.com. It's really important. And also, folks, you may have missed it, but we actually caused a lot of important change in the state of New York. I was one of the very first people to call out New York because they were trying to steal a congressional seat, which is normally a Republican congressional seat. And because we covered it on this show, we did an emergency broadcast, which garnished over 1 million views. Guess what happened? New York Democrats decided to back out. So if you want to be a part of change, head over right now to breannamorello.substack.com. That's breannamorello.substack.com. Join my newsletter because, folks, we are building a team of truth tellers, and that is the best way to do so. So join the newsletter at breannamorello.substack.com today.